What's up, YouTube? Well, I've seen a lot of videos on here about shroom trips, and I decided to tell you about mine. I have taken psilocybin mushrooms. I am 22 years old, and I started taking psilocybin mushrooms when I was 18, 19, and I did my first few trips when I was 19. I think I did 3 within a period of a month, and I liked it. Like, I'm not gonna say, like, never do fucking mushrooms, ever. Never do mushrooms unless you know what's going to happen. Be with good people, alright? Like, be with good people. I've done mushrooms in crowds of people, and I felt a lot better with a fuck ton of people that weren't even high than when I walked home. And every trip I've ever had, I've been alone. I don't know why. I always felt scared, like if I was around this group of people and I had a problem, they wouldn't listen to me. So what's not just be alone? And this trip I'm going to tell you about, it was summertime. I was 20, I think I was 20 years old. And me and my buddy, we decided to go get some magic mushrooms, and he got an ounce of magic mushrooms. So we get to the top of this park, and we eat the mushrooms. Sorry if I'm slow at talking. We eat the mushrooms, and I grab a handful, just like dig in the bag, grab a handful, because, you know, I'm being cocky, and I think that I can tell this guy what's going to happen in his trip. And I decided to tell him what was going to happen in this trip before we ate the mushrooms, which was the worst idea. And I will never ever do that again before ever taking this. You set yourself up for your own trip if you describe mushrooms and then take them. So I grab a handful, put them in my mouth, and it was the most disgusting and horrible taste ever. I've eaten mushrooms before. They were delicious, alright? Like, they had like powder on them, they were good, and they felt good. I got happy, sad, angry, depressed, like all these magical emotions, things I never felt before. So I took it, and we walked down the hill and sat on a bench, and I sat down, alright? So I got up, and I walked over to the bench, sat down, and it's only been like 10 minutes, okay? 10, 15 minutes. Nobody believes me, alright? I sit down on this bench. Boom! I sit down, and instantly, like, I fell through the bench, and then hit the ground, and fell through the ground. Like, here's the bench. I hit the bench, and it felt as though my body went through the bench like a ghost, hit the ground, went through the ground, and then came back from the sky, hit the bench, hit the ground, went back to the ground, and this repeated like 10 times for about, I wouldn't even be able to tell you, because time just went poof, it was gone. Time didn't make any sense to me at all. I was also dehydrated, so that could have been why I tripped so quickly. I didn't eat anything, and I told my buddy all the crazy shit that was going to happen. He was sitting there, and he looks over to me after about 10 minutes, and he looks over and he's like, "You want a toke?" And I looked at him like this, man. What? No, I'm fine. Like, I was looking at him like, you didn't just see me fall from the sky, hit the bench, go under to hell, come back from heaven, hit the bench, and go back to hell? You didn't see me? You didn't see that happen? And he's like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? He has never done this before, so he had never known what the hell was going on. He ate more than I did, and it took him like 2.5 hours to start tripping. Anyways, we walked back from this park, We go across the bridge, and as I'm walking, I'm realizing, like, what the hell are these mushrooms? Like, everything around me, I'm sober right now, and everything is normal. Sometimes when you're on mushrooms, everything becomes more realistic than reality. But it's so realistic it seems fake. Never question yourself. Just never question, just keep walking. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. You don't question death when you're on mushrooms. You'll go insane. Okay? Don't even think about that. Just believe like I ate mushrooms, now I'm dead, and I'll come back to life in the next 5 hours. Like, you know. I go to my friend's house. We sit in the backyard. I'm dehydrated, and I'm like, yo, can you get me some water? I got there, and I drank the water, put the water to my mouth, and started drinking. And I spit it all over the ground and asked him what the fuck he just gave me. And he's like, I gave you water. What are you talking about? And I take another sip, and it felt like the water, this liquid, normal water that is normal to any sober person, felt like the water was made out of liquid plastic. And I put it in my throat, and it just like sipped out of my mouth. It just fell out of my mouth, but felt like plastic running down my mouth. And at this point, I was thinking, like, this isn't mushrooms. Of course, I'd only taken like maybe 4 grams before. This time I took maybe about 6 to 7, and holy shit. Whether there was some LSD in these mushrooms or not, I'm not sure. Craziest experience. I'm sitting in the back, and he has a fence, like a chicken wire fence, and it's like squares. And I was looking at that, and literally I remember watching a video, the one like I'm making now, and somebody was saying they were looking at a chicken wire fence, and they looked at the sky, and it was a grid. And that's exactly what I seen. Like, I looked at the sky, and there was a green, like, matrix grid all over the sky, and I found it so cool. I started looking at a flower. He had a gazebo, and it was made out of steel. And there was a rose here, here, and here. And I stared at it for so long, and I looked at it afterwards, and I seen a Joker's face. So the roses turned into like a Joker's hat, okay, or a jester's hat, and a little smiley face with perfect white teeth. And this was all colorful on the hat, like medieval. I was thinking to myself, like, what the hell? My buddy looks over to me and says, I have to go home now because he's pissed off that the drugs aren't working. And when you're on mushrooms, if you've ever been offended by something before, when you're on mushrooms, you feel like offense is somebody not giving a flying fuck. They don't believe a single thing that's happening to you. They think you're just going nuts. So I walked home, and I get outside, and I look at my phone. The phone I'm looking at right now, maybe it was a different phone, I'm not sure. Around the border of my phone, when I opened it up, around the entire border was rainbow like colors, and inside my phone, like, the phone looked 3-dimensional, and not like the 3-dimensional apps, because those didn't fucking exist. It was like through the phone, like I could put my hand through the phone, into the phone, and grab an app out of the phone. Like, I was thinking to myself, this can't just be mushrooms. I tell my mom I'm gonna be home. I text her, tell her I'll be home within 3 hours. Never set a fucking time limit. I was not even 2 miles away from my house, and it took me 3 hours to get home. Start walking down the street, and instead of taking this way, which goes straight to the street, I went around this way for some reason, and it meets up with the street that I was already on, and then goes to the road. I go around here, and I get to like halfway, and it felt like I was walking for 15 minutes. It was ridiculous. I got scared and sketched out. It was nighttime. It was pitch black out, but for some reason, I felt like it was daytime. I don't know why. And then I came back into the realization from walking for 15 minutes in one place that I was officially high. I started walking down the road. It's called Denise. And I decided to go for a jog. Never did this on mushrooms before, but I went for a jog. I started running down the Nice. I ran a kilometer. And I was overstressing my body. A friend of mine told me it was like seeing stars, the hallucination I had. I looked up at the moon. And the moon dropped out of the sky. And the sun came up. And I swear to you, it was midnight. But the sun came up, and I could see everybody walking around me midday. I could see perfectly, and everything was colorful. It was middle of the night. The sun dropped, and I realized, holy fuck, it's nighttime. After I stopped running, like, I was running, and the sun came up, and then I stopped running, and my trip went over me. Like, it's like my trip fell back, and then overshot my entire body, and I was just going, like, I don't even know. My favorite trip ever, though, I must say. I go to my grandma's, grab my bike. I should have grabbed a bottle of water, probably. Grab my bike, and I start riding it, and I'm like, why the fuck do my tires feel flat? And I'm getting down the road a bit, and I ran over trash. And I was like, oh no, I ran over trash, I ran over glass, like, what the hell? And I start looking everywhere, and I could see piles of trash all scattered all over the ground. And at this point, I was thinking, wow, when you see something dirty, or you think of something dirty and you're tripping hard, everything around you literally looks dirty. I was hallucinating, like, that exact pile of garbage in different spots of the street. And it wasn't actually there. And every time I'd ride over it, I would hear crack, crack, crack from all the cans. It was weird. I get to a street called Emily, and it goes around like this to the highway. I get to Emily, and I start riding, and there's, the street's wet. So the light from the street lights was shining on the rocks, and as I was moving, you know at night, when you're moving on a bike, it shines. Well, that shine literally was like, it looked like a laser, white laser, flying past my head. But it wasn't hitting me, it was just going past my head. And it all came out, like 100 of them. Like, came out lasers like this. It looked like I was riding through glass spikes or crystals of light. I get to the end of the street, I'm starting to think, okay, every single street I go on is going to be a new experience. Like, every single street I'm on, I'm going to see or feel something different. I get to the top, I see my friend that I left his house, his brother's walking home. I say, Corey, what's up? He says, Brendan, what's up? I go over to see him to talk to him. He's yelling at me because he thought we were doing coke. And for some reason, I had it on the tip of my tongue to say I'm on psilocybin, but I couldn't say it. Like, I could not form the word to say I'm not high on coke. I'm high on mushrooms. He was mad, and I started tripping. His face changed, man. Like, his face got all blotchy and moved, and he turned into a different person. I grabbed him, and I was like, Corey, is this you? And he's like, yeah, it's me, but his face literally changed in front of me. Sometimes when you take mushrooms, you could be taking acid, and you wouldn't even know. And to this day, I think I took acid. But yeah, I got home, and my mom freaked out. I seen crazy shit. Crazy shit. I went to heaven. I fell on the ground, flew up into the sky. Everything. But yeah, that's the end. And I hope you enjoyed.